Okay. My name is Brandy Wilson, and on March 12th, 2008, I had a massive heart attack. Before my heart attack, I was very young and healthy and vibrant and very slim and healthy. I had had 3 good pregnancies, and we were pretty careful about the way we ate, and we were very active. I was home with my children and had been home for just a few days after giving birth to my 3rd child. And I woke up that day and actually had been feeling better than I had been feeling the previous few days because I had been having problems with my blood pressure. I had gone back to see my OBGYN a few times, and my blood pressure was like 200 over 100, and they had given me blood pressure medication to help to bring it down, but it really wasn't helping, and I was having headaches, and I had pitting edema in my thighs, or up to my thighs, and I just didn't feel right. But the day that I had the heart attack, all of the fluid had come off, and I actually was feeling better. And my 2 toddlers, I had a 3 and a 5-year-old, were in the backyard playing, and my brand new baby was sitting in the swing sleeping, and I was in the kitchen making a peach cobbler because I had a big can of peaches that I wanted to use. And I was standing there, and my left arm, I started to feel a sharp pain, and that pain went to my back, and then it went to the center of my chest. And my very first thought was, I think I'm having a heart attack. And then it started to get worse, and my left arm started to go numb, and my face started to sweat like ice, like icy water. It was really cold, and I just started to feel short of breath. And about that time, I called my husband and told him that I really felt like I was having a heart attack, and I think he heard the fear in my voice. But my kids were in the backyard, and they were covered in dirt because they're 3 and 5. And so they came in, and I told them they had to get a bath because I was so worried about them being dirty when I had to go to the hospital. So I tried to get their clothes off of them. Um, and they knew something was wrong because my kids are very chattery and don't always listen to everything, at 3 and 5 years old. But at that moment, I remember them staring at me like they could see fear on my face. And I was trying to get their clothes off them, but by that time, my left arm, I could not use at all anymore. And I got their clothes halfway off them and realized that there was no way I was going to be able to get them in a bathtub. And we went to Bothwell Hospital, and where they did an EKG, and that showed that I was having what's called a STEMI. And they decided that I would need to be life flighted to another hospital. And that's where I met Dr. Woods through Missouri Heart Center.
Well, it's probably the toughest day of my life. My wife had a heart attack. I got to the hospital. No one would tell me anything. Um, Next thing I know, they're putting my wife on a helicopter, flying her to Columbia. I've got 3 children, a 10-day-old newborn. Of course, I'm a man, so I don't do the real baby stuff and all that. And reality hits of how much your wife does. I left my wife in a helicopter. I had to come home and figure out what I was going to do with my 3 children so I could drive to the hospital. It was about 2 hours before I got there. It seemed like an eternity, a lifetime of my mom here. Of course, our pastor came, and some ladies from the church took our children so I could go. I arrived at the hospital, waited for hours for the doctor to come and tell me what happened.
So after they took me off the table and started to take me to ICU, I started like having pink foam that came out of my mouth, and I felt like I was drowning. And I was very panicked and scared, and I hadn't actually worried about dying from the heart attack as much as then I worried about drowning, because every breath I took I was breathing foam. It was watery foam, and it tasted very bad, and I just was very panicked, and I was alone at that time because I hadn't seen my husband yet. And the doctor had said that it was going to be a while before we knew how bad the damage was, and then he said at least 4 weeks before we could assess the damage, because when a heart is irritable from a heart attack, it's hard to tell how severe the damage is. I begged the doctor to let me leave because I had a brand new baby and 2 toddlers, and I needed to get home to my family. He did let me leave like 3 days later, and I came home and I kept having little blackout episodes. I would feel fluttering that would come up my neck, and then I wouldn't be able to see anything wrong. And we went back to the hospital, went to Bothwell, and they said that I was, having my cardiac markers were elevated. So they had me do it's called an event monitor, or a Holter monitor, where they monitor me at home. And then they called me and said, we need you to come back in because you're having what's called ventricular tachycardia. The bottom of my heart was beating faster than the top of my heart. And it's a very dangerous rhythm that causes cardiac arrest and death very quickly. And life got a little bit better after that, just because I felt like I was a little bit more protected and not worrying so much about the rhythm. But I definitely had a rough 2 years. I was very sick for 2 years and had no energy, and went through several surgeries between the pacemaker, defibrillator, and then over the next 2 years, just getting used to taking medications and adjusting to this new life and affording this new way of life. It was definitely a big change for both of us. There's really no reason that we could understand why this had happened, and it wasn't until several weeks after I had the heart attack that we found out that our brand new little baby was born with a birth defect called craniosynostosis. The suture lines in the skull, which actually can cross over each other while going through a birth canal, were actually fused together at birth. They're not supposed to do that till you're about 25 years old, but his were already touching. So just the pressure that I was pushing from the pushing actually caused my left main artery in my heart to rupture or dissect. And when they went in and did the angiogram, they could see that artery had actually completely collapsed. The stents didn't hold up in the artery. And he said then that I would eventually need to have a heart transplant. And we were devastated. That was a huge blow because we had worked so hard to get back to living our lives again. I had been sitting in my home for 2 years in darkness. It was very, very hard. My husband, I think, felt the same way he was dealing with his own thing, because, being the person that's sick, you do feel alone sometimes, but your spouse is also dealing with something because they have the weight of having a sick spouse and having children to take care of. And he was the only one that worked, and we had used every last dime we had of our savings to pay off medical bills and afford medications. I never knew how ambitious I was until I went through all of this. I enrolled at State Fair, and with the help of Voc Rehab, was able to get started in some classes. I loved going to college, and I enjoyed it, and it gave me a new purpose in life. But we overcame so much because, several years before that, we didn't think that I would be able to ever do anything again. And we were actually, it was questionable whether I would even be around anymore.
I guess for me, the biggest thing out of this is it's made me a better person, a better father, a better husband, because I guess you take for granted what each role that each person plays. I had to learn how to cook, had to learn how to clean, the housework, had to learn to juggle to get the kids to school, as well as work my job. I had to learn to trust and depend on other people that to help us with things. So for me, it was not only a shock what happened to her, but the events that follow after. It changes your whole life completely. But I'm a firm believer your attitude and your approach towards things and how you address the situation. You can feel sorry for yourselves, or you can grab life and make the best of it. And that's what we did. She went to school, and as far as I'm concerned, she's the best nurse there is. So.
Go Red for Women is very important to me because I think that women often go undiagnosed because our symptoms are not the same. What I'll call standard signs, which would be the stabbing in the arm, the stabbing in the chest, and the back pain. Women can have nausea, vomiting, jaw pain, back pain, feel like heartburn or not feel like a heart attack at all. Could feel like jaw pain and a toothache, and you would never suspect a heart attack. But these are the things that we need to be checking for. And I think that Go Red for Women and American Heart Association puts that out there. But, you tell new moms, if you feel like something's not right with your baby, follow it. Well, when you're thinking about your own health, you need to do the same thing. Don't brush off the feeling that something's not right. Or if you just don't feel well, there's no harm in getting it checked out. We didn't do enough then because at that point, we could have probably prevented what happens. I didn't push hard enough because I didn't know. I really was uneducated. And again, this is where the education comes in, because had I been educated and had I know what I know now, I would have done more. I think American Heart Association helps not just the regular community, but also helps healthcare providers to pass along the information, and we support that. It is something, when I do bedside teaching as a nurse, I'm a med-surg nurse, so I talk to people. I see people every day with high blood pressure and diabetes and heart disease, and I definitely recommend people to look at American Heart Association website. I have the little Go Red for Women dress, the pen, and I wear that. I love that pen, and I have always kept it on my jacket, and I see people with them all the time, and so it makes me proud to see people with that pen. I had some testing that showed that the muscle of my left ventricle, which your left ventricle is the pump of your heart, and it also pumps blood between your lungs and the heart. So I have what's called left-sided heart failure, and but my left ventricle has no viable muscle left. So I'm not a candidate to have like a bypass open heart surgery, because there's no sense in going through that surgery and rerouting blood to a muscle that's no longer viable. So eventually, I hope the heart that I have lasts me many, many years, and then I will eventually get a heart transplant. And with American Heart Association, I firmly believe that the money is used to go towards research, and that research is going to make a difference. I actually saw somebody not too long ago that had one of the old pacemakers, the big ones, the big ones. Well, through research, they were able to make new ones and smaller ones, and then they got, they moved them to a different place. And then I know the defibrillators were later added. And anyways, but I feel like that with supporting a cause that you can see that the research has made a difference, and we have things in place. Like I probably wouldn't be alive today if it weren't for my ICD. In fact, I'm pretty sure we know that. I'd like to thank everybody here that has come to support the American Heart Association and all that they do.
I'd like to thank the American Heart Association for all that they do. Thank you for your contributions, for your research. Thank you for making a difference in my family.